So let's try that again, shall we? Okay. And thanks, guys. Okay, so we were looking at these three stanzas that are linked together in the way that repetition is used, and ending each stanza with this notion of the rhetorical presuming. When we finished off yesterday, we were looking at this idea, this formulated phrase, and formula being or formalin being the insect preservative that was used when insects were captured live and then preserved and stuck onto a pinboard for observation. So that idea of being, stuck for observation, but he's got this really interesting term phrase. So he's talking about words. And there was, if you remember Mrs. Dalloway, and I did mention this yesterday, she was so, yes.
No, I just thought of something.
Yeah.
That insect being stuck, isn't that like the patient in the first stanza?
Absolutely, yes. Yes. Well done, Miss Wilk. Absolutely, so the patient that's etherized, that's stuck, that can't move, and now we have the insect that's stuck and he's formulated, sprawling on a pin, so it's really unsettling when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall. So the unsettling idea of the insect still being alive and suffering that slow death. But this word phrase, when he is fix you in a formulated phrase, he's talking about the reduction of identity down to some words, a phrase, something that someone says about you. Oh, she's the ugly one, or he's the one who's going bald, or she's the one who, and you know how there's that very minimal condensing of an identity into something that's critical. And in Mrs. Dalloway, when we saw the Mrs. Dalloway character wondering or, speculating about how she can be so complex on the inside and yet seen so superficially by so many on the outside and labelled as just a housewife or a mother, we're connecting with that idea of not being truly known, not being truly seen, but being observed and critiqued really harshly and not being able to escape that critique. So the patient that was etherized, that couldn't move, that couldn't make a decision, that couldn't escape, now we've got this insect imagery where he's pinned and wriggling and wanting to escape but completely unable to. And the thing that he can't escape from is the judgment of others, the labelling that doesn't define exactly who he is but is critical. So what we're going to write here is, so we've got when I am formulated sprawling on a pin, so it's all metaphor, isn't it? Okay, so metaphor is our technique. We're going to just make note that it is unsettling. Unsettling imagery, and there is definitely death imagery in there. And conveys, so we'll say this conveys that he is not seen for who he is, but reduced to an external perceptions. Reduced to an external perception. And this also refers to the limitations of language. The modernists were often concerned with being misunderstood, or that idea of how can true meaning be conveyed? How can true notions of self be conveyed? So hence the stream of consciousness. With this idea of limitations of language, in a moment we've got the repetition of, in a moment we've got this repetition of the women going, that is not what I meant at all, that is not it at all. So that notion of misunderstanding, inability to be able to communicate in the way that you desire, that's one of those modernist concerns, okay? So remember that when, here we're talking about our flaneur, our persona, Prufrock, but he's representative of the modern man's position. So there's that bigger representation. So because all of that relates to the next couple of lines, I'm just going to underline them as well, because this is our metaphor. I'm pinned and wriggling on the wall. Then how should I begin to spit out all the butt ends of my days and ways? And how should I presume? When we read this, spit out all the butt ends of my days and ways, we have the sound of spitting being created. And because the sounds come here at the ends of the word spit out, or the butt ends of my days and ways, and I think the D there does contribute to it, but we're looking at this T at the end of these words, rather than alliteration, because it's occurring, there's none of it occurring at the beginning of the words. The technique is called consonance. You may or may not have heard of that before. Has people heard of that one before? Consonance. So it's consonance, which is the repeated sounds within or at the end of words. That's an O. Didn't make that clear. So consonants, and what this does is it mimics the sound of spitting to convey the disgust that Prufrock has for his own stale. Now here, think of the image of butt ends. We think of a cigarette that has been smoked down, that is now, spat out. It's stale. It's part of the pollution and the rubbish of his own stale, meaningless lived existence. Or lived experiences. So the butt ends of his days and ways, he's saying that all of his experiences are stale and meaningless and nothing better than rubbish and pollution. We've already annotated above what this rhetorical question that is repeated is doing, giving that justification for his hesitation. And further procrastination. We are going to add at the side here something that is about this entire stanza, and it's to do with being trapped, that idea of the insect. So we've written already that it's the metaphor conveying that he about being critiqued and not being understood properly. But what we're going to add now is that that notion of entrapment. So he is metaphorically trapped by both internal and social scrutiny. We're adding social conventions both restrain and alienate him. Okay, so can you see how this idea of etherized upon a table, the idea of formulated phrase, when I am formulated sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned, all of these work together to metaphorically represent that he feels trapped by internal and social scrutiny. So he's talking about the eyes, like everyone around him who he feels is criticizing him, but it's his own internal criticisms that prevent him from doing anything. And all of those interjections that are in the brackets that have got, you know, they will say how his hair is growing thin, and they'll say how his legs and arms are thin, and all of those things. That's his speculation at what he thinks they're going to say or what he assumes. So this internal scrutiny is trapping him just as significantly as any external scrutiny as well. And the social conventions that he is trying to fit in with, you know, he's talking about how he's dressed and he's got his tie and his pin fixed neatly at his chin. All of that, as he's trying to fit in, is also trapping him and alienating him, which leads to him feeling paralysed and helpless, hence the wriggling insect on the pin. Now, we move on to our final stanza in this group of three. And I have known the arms already, known them all, arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight downed with light brown hair. Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl. And should I then presume? And how should I begin? I've read a few different interpretations here, and we were looking at one just yesterday, I think, that suggested when he's saying I've known the arms already, that it's talking about his past sexual encounters and all the, you know, the women that he has been with. I don't read it like that. I think that he is like quite alienated and trapped by insecurity, that he's not actually had those experiences. I think it's more that he's been, as a flaneur, he's observing. That's what a flaneur does. And so I think he's observed so much and he's seen it there for everybody else, and there's all of this overhearing, like I know the voices, that I think it's that what he knows is what he's witnessed that he's not been a part of, that he desires. But you're welcome to have a different opinion about that. We're just going to circle our synecdoche here, which we've got with arms. So arms and arms, and down here arms. And let's just write the synecdoche here. So here he's reducing the women to just arms. And again, it's kind of that ironic, he's afraid of being simply a formulated phrase and reduced to some words, and yet he's doing the exact same thing when he refers to women, and he reduces them to arms, and so he's doing exactly what he's criticising. We're going to add a little bit more about that. So the overarching thing is the reduction of the women. Over here, we're going to expand on this a little bit. And we're going to say, he reduces the women into fragmented parts. Now, fragmentation is a big thing in the modernist movement. It's part of the form of our poetry, but it's also what he's doing within the poem. And here it's to women. So of course that's dehumanizing. So just like the eyes, which dehumanized modern man into a gaze, yes.
I thought that the arms white and bare and braceleted would be like a sick man in a hospital.
Ooh.
Because like white and bare, that's like.
I hadn't.
Like
Okay, I'd never considered that, but that works. Braceleted is in the hospital, and white and bare. Okay, we're going to add that. I've never thought of it that way, but that works really well. Thank you. Okay, alright. Alright, we're going to add some of that. That's actually really good. Fragmented parts, dehumanizing them.
Comparing a woman and like a woman's identity to that of someone who's sick. You know what I mean? It's a further dehumanizing.
Now that you're saying it, I do.
Both women and like hospital.
Yeah, and like maybe that desire and sexual desire is like a sickness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did we get that one recording? Wow. I feel like it's like
As opposed to the romantic love soft. Okay, all right, we're going to be writing all this. All right, I feel like my annotation isn't as good now as the one that these guys have just come up with, but we're going to put it here nonetheless. Dehumanizing them into merely objects of sexual desire. He avoids seeing them as whole. So he avoids seeing them as whole, complex people as a means to protect himself from their judgment. Alright, so just quickly, this reflects a broader alienation of the modern world. I really was reminded again of Miss Dalloway here, in that even though she's got all of these ruminations about the complexity of her identity and her past, in the end she hosts the party and she does play the part that society expects her. She's protecting herself, because to do anything other than that would be to be judged for that. In the hours when Laura Dern went and left her family to pursue her true identity and embrace the complexity of who she was as a woman, that led to her being very critically judged, and she very severely judged herself for that as well. So that was what I had written down, but these guys have come up with this idea that I hadn't considered before, but now that they've said it, it works so well and I can really see it. And this is the thing that I have been trying to convey to you guys, that there's so much ambiguity in the poetry that you really are supposed to be able to get what you see out of it. And as soon as you start saying these things aloud, it makes sense. And if it didn't make sense, I would say, no, I don't think so. But let me, because you wouldn't have been able to hear what they were saying. So this was a kind of a collective response from this area that started with Grace and Charlie and, is it Sophie? And like quite a few people. All right, what about this being an imagery of sickness and having this idea of in the hospital you've got the bracelet or the hospital ID tag, the arms are white and bare, and arms that lie along a table, like that death imagery in the morgue, the arms that are just there naked lying in the table. Now if that death imagery and that imagery of sickness here is associated with his representation of women, then it's conveying the idea that the ultimate sickness that he sees is this desire for these women that he can't achieve, that he's kind of placed them in this realm of inaccessibility. And so for him, that's his mental health sickness, that he's consumed with, I guess, sexual desires that are for him a disease. And then that is the ultimate subversion of romanticism and that romantic notion of romantic love. It's no longer something that people see as fulfilling and need and that they need, but rather than an infection and an illness. It works, doesn't it? Okay. It works really, really, really well. I'm like, this is like exciting for me. Okay, so let's put this in here. So how are we going to do this? So we're going to, because I think that what really gives that, I think that the imagery that really works for that is white and bare, isn't it? White and bare, and the arms that lie. Now, the other reason why I think this actually works so well, I said here that there was death imagery, didn't I? Mm-hmm. And so it builds here into death imagery. Death imagery. And arms that lie along a table all wrap about a shore. I think that's our connection there between death and women. So a woman who has a shawl, it's like they lie on the table in death or wrap about the shawl like they're one and the same. Okay. Okay, let's write death imagery. Yes?
Would you say that the death imagery is kind of like inadvertent? Because I feel like it's not like actively being like death.
Well, okay, so guys, listen up. So Charlie's just asking, would you say that it's inadvertent death imagery because it's not so out there? With so much of Eliot's poetry, a lot of it is hidden, and so there's so much that is like found in amongst the literal that I think that it's okay just to go death imagery, because otherwise pretty much everything almost could be inadvertent. And I think that as soon as you say it and then you start to connect it, it's obvious. Because now I'm thinking, wow, I can't believe I've never seen that before, because now that you've said it, it feels really obvious to me. Grace?
Jess has also said that the arms that wrap around the shawl is like also kind of like funeral imagery.
I thought the same, like the shroud?
Yeah.
Yes, I was actually thinking the same. And so I think that there's ambiguity there, like it could be the death shroud or the death wrap, or it could be the shawl. And I think that because it's ambiguous and could be either or, that's why it works so well. Yes?
I'm sorry. With that whole, like the arms that lie along the table kind of is like connected to the formulated phrase and the patient etherized. And it's like the lack of control is like the lack of control over his feelings about women and stuff like that.
Absolutely, yes. Alright, so okay, let's write this. Alright, I'm thinking. Okay, so here's how, okay, so because I haven't written this before, guys, and I'm just doing it now, trying to pull all these ideas together from everyone. So it might be a bit disjointed, it might not sound fantastic, but let's see how I go. I'm going to put it down here as a bigger point, right? So because it does connect here, because here we've got the dying fall, which is that musical illusion that provides melancholy, but I mean, we've literally got the word dying here, don't we? So when we suddenly look for death imagery, and we've got the death imagery in here and the idea of being restricted, and everything that we just said here. So we're going to say, alright, okay. Okay, so let's say Prufrock Alright, so I'm starting with Prufrock likens love and desire to sickness and death with the arms creating ambiguous imagery of both Does lure have two L's or one? Two. One? I don't know. I think it's two. With the arms creating ambiguous imagery of both sexual allure, because if we take it that they're braceleted and white and bare, and remember, this is also the 1920s where women were suddenly showing their legs and arms and dressing in far more suggestive and racy ways than had been done previously. Think about if you've watched The Great Gatsby, or and there's that sudden exposure of skin that was confronting. At the beginning of The Great Gatsby, he says the morals were looser, and so we've got this sexual allure, but I'm saying it's ambiguous imagery of both sexual allure and an imagery of both sexual allure and that of a corpse. Oh, corporeal? Well, corporeal is of the body. So, that of a corpse. Okay, so go full stop there. That of a corpse. Okay, the notion of restriction. Okay, so the notion of restriction is also furthered as the arms that lie what's wrong? As the arms that lie the arms that like conjure the formulated hey, year 12, as I'm writing this, okay, so because Sophie said that she saw the links with the formulated pinned and wriggling and the etherized upon a table with that idea of restriction, the arms that lie. So I've just looked back on the first page, and one of the first things I saw was insidious intent. Do you remember me saying that something that's insidious is underlying and it builds and it's kind of got that slow infiltration? And so I think going along with this idea, the insidious aspect is the women and the desire and the way that he's viewing them. So if I've said the notion of restriction is also furthered as the arms that lie conjure the formulated pinned and wriggling and the etherized upon a table, with the ultimate suggestion that
I know, but I'm just saying. Because like you would do like any work in yeah. You know what I'm saying? Not fiction. Yeah. You literally just like that was nailed it.
okay.
I know, but like,
Now guys, get this written down and let me just explain the importance of what we've just done, okay? So, if I had half an hour or an hour to sit and put this into more articulate structure, then I would, but I don't, so this is just what I've come up with as a first go. Prufrock likens love and desire to sickness and death, with the arms creating ambiguous imagery of both sexual allure and that of a corpse. The notion of restriction is also furthered as the arms that lie conjure the formulated pinned and wriggling and the etherized upon a table, with the ultimate suggestion that desire or women are that which is insidious. And so I've got desire / women because it could be either or. Like perhaps he sees it as women, but we could see, well, no, it's not the women, it's your desire that is insidious. It's eating away at you. Now, I've already said, how important it is that you can look and see these things that I might not have seen. Like that's where the gold is. What you also are going to need to do, and this is what we're building on, is you need to be able to talk about the poems holistically and the suite of poetry as a suite of poetry holistically. Now, whilst you might focus in your HSC at the end game, you might focus on 3 poems in great detail, but you're going to want to have an awareness of the suite, like what he's doing throughout. And when you are talking about the poems that you've chosen to talk about in that great detail, it means talking about what they're doing across the poem. Now this is why we go into so much depth with Prufrock, and as I said yesterday, if you weren't here yesterday, we do not spend as much time with the other poems. They're shorter, but this one is our foundation. It's like the concrete base to the house. This is where all of his conceptual ideas are being laid out for us, and then the other poems that come later build upon this. So, in making a comment like this idea of this reminds us of sickness, when we can then go and link in with things that he said previously, then that's showing that holistic understanding of the poem. And it's not going to be just one idea that you're talking about. There's going to be multiple ideas. And I keep saying, that will look clearer to you when I give you some examples. But before I start giving you examples and critical readings, I want you to have this ability to look at it without all of that crowding what you're thinking, and feel free to think of things that I haven't mentioned. So I'm really pleased that you guys spoke up then, and so please, if you do kind of see something, and don't just say stay quiet, mention it, because that's where we get this collective understanding, and we keep building on what we're seeing in the poetry. I keep on banging on about, you have to write a conceptual response. That's what a conceptual response is like talking about it like this. So when we have a discussion, listen when other people are saying things, because that's conceptual, that's discussion, and that's the thing that you want to ultimately do. Charlie?
When we're talking holistically about the suite of poems, but the trials, do we just count that as the 3 that we've done?
The trials are different, okay? So by the time we do trials, you'll only have done 3 poems, and we won't be expecting you to talk about the suite holistically at all. And your response will be focusing on the 3 poems that we've done. So, yes. Okay. Now, how are we going for time? Okay, so we've got 10 minutes. Now let's... Okay. Oh, the only other thing that I wanted to point out here is when he says perfume from a dress that makes me so digress. We've got what type of imagery is perfume? Who remembers? Olfactory. Got olfactory imagery there. And hey guys, thank you. We've only got 10 minutes. Olfactory imagery, which is sexual allure, so that wearing of perfume to attract to someone, and that makes me so digress, kind of makes him go off track. So that's his further procrastination. So he's saying, so he's kind of blaming everything on this sexual allure, which once again works in with this idea of it being like a disease and death. Okay. Shall I say, I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows. I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. Now, we've got to return here to the initial setting in the poem. So we're getting a sense of the cyclical nature of life with this. At dusk through narrow streets, we're writing return to the initial setting. Cyclical nature of life. Now, we have in noticeable use here of enjambment with. Now, I'll show you what it's doing. And watch the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves. It's changing the meaning. So in this line, the pipes are the chimneys that are delivering the pollution into the urban landscape. But with the enjambment, it's the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves. So it's the men who are smoking pipes. So the word is used with dual meaning here. So we're going to write enjambment. No, homophone is when it a word is spelt the same backwards and forwards, isn't it? Oh no, that's a palindrome. No, homophone.
The same word
but meaning different. You are right. It's homophone. Yes. Same. Yes.
But is it, because it's not just one word though?
No, it's used as a homophone. Hold on, we'll write that. E-M-B-M-E-N-T, enjambment. So we'll actually write that. Using the homophone of pipes
Enjambment is form, FYI.
Oh yes, guys. Thank you, Miss. This is from those of you who are identifying form. Homophone is a technique. Enjambment is form. This is language. The enjambment is form, but then when I talk about what it's doing, that is language technique. Yeah, so it's a separation of the lines without there being punctuation there. And he does it at other times as well, but here it's got this meaning. So, sorry?
Oh, okay.
equals
This was all mine right except for the run out.
Hashtag run out.
Can you like actually just let me Literally. I'm joking, but it's just like
hey guys, I'm going to run out of room, so I'm going to just put it across here. So make sure you've got this bit. Enjambment, which is form, using the homophone of pipe, so when we talk about the homophone, that's language technique, to equal both chimneys and men smoking. Now, I'm just adding to that over here. I'll see if I can keep it all on. Yes, I can. And what this is doing is it's connecting the pollution of the city with man's inner pollution, which works with the idea of disease and death imagery from previous. Yes. Well, both. It's externalizing and internalizing.
I just feel like the patients
Yeah, I just think the kids are like, I can't teach people because I feel like they'll just be like, how come you don't know? You know what I mean? Yeah, I think
And make sure that you add there. What I'm going to do, look at this. It's all connecting, and I'm going to write disease. It connects. That word doesn't look like disease. It is disease. Disease. I've made it look worse. It says disease.
Disease is just connected to the pollution.
It's connected up here as well.
Yeah,
Because I think that it connects with,
Arrange it so I don't go like crazy.
because the disease imagery of if the women are like the illness and the sickness and the disease, then this all connects. Even though it's a different type of illness, it's still disease and illness. I understand that I do.
Oh, that's nice. I feel confident in myself. I feel like a network. I'm being honest because of the term. Yeah. Like cycling. I read the